Right. Hi, and thanks so much for coming today to talk with us about toddler and preschooler big feelings. I'm Dr. Erica Cannell, and a little bit about me. I'm a board certified pediatrician at the Redmond Ridge office. Before I went to medical school, I was a seventh grade science teacher in New York through the Teach for America program. And I stayed in New York for quite a while. I did medical school and residency at NYU, and then we stayed in New York for even longer. And I worked as a NICU hospitalist for a little bit, but for sure, like my deep calling is with primary care and like longitudinal care, growing with families. And so to that end, I'm now in my 10th year in practice at Allegro. And then outside of the office, I'm also a mom to two elementary schoolers that, to my recollection, had basically like next level toddler feelings. And the things change as they get into elementary school, but they continue to provide me with on the ground experience in managing emotions. This is a photo of us on a walk early in pandemic, and something became unacceptable to my oldest, and we like could not move forward until we felt better about it. So there was a lot of like laying on the ground and screaming. It could have been something like stepped in a puddle, got my socks wet, something like something tripped me, I lost a rock, any number of things could bring us to a complete standstill. And so I feel you on all of the meltdowns that your kids are experiencing as well. What can I, just as a framework for what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to start with toddler development. So the ages of 2, 3, and 4, and like what happens, what goes on developmentally in their minds. Then I'm going to break down the tools that I use for regulating big emotions. I separated them into categories. So kind of things that you can do before the meltdown, such as providing a sense of control and setting aside some special time. What can you do during a meltdown? Including giving feelings a name, validating their experience, and trying to get creative. And then what can we do after the meltdown when we're in more of a calm state so that you can figure out what did we all just go through? Then I have a list of some helpful resources and what to talk to your doc about if you feel like you need more support. And then if there's time, then questions at the end. As a fully grown human, I most of the time feel like I can stay upright in my life, but there is nothing like my kids' dysregulated feelings to bring me to my knees in a way that I could not have imagined before I became a parent. And while most of the time when I'm like managing their feelings, I do stay upright after they go to bed. Every so often I'm face down on the couch. Developmental norms for toddlers and preschoolers, just so that we all kind of start on the same page. Big picture, toddler has two simultaneous and sometimes conflicting needs, kind of doing that tug of war. You have your growing desire for autonomy, and then also that persistent need for protection, and they're kind of pulling against each other. Your child is moving away from you and then coming back to a safer home base, and then moving away and then coming back. And sometimes it can kind of feel like it's giving you whiplash, like how fast it's going back and forth between those two big needs. So starting with 2, like really often it feels like a switch flips at 2 years old, and they really start to develop that increased sense of need for independence, looking for autonomy. I love the 2-year-old wellness visit. It's like so fun to have seen how much personality they've developed in between the 18-month and 2-year wellness. So you can really start to see a child's personality shining through. They definitely start to say no to everything and try to test limits, and they have poor control over their emotional impulses. So their problems are solved with hitting and biting and crying and screaming. They have low expressive language capacity, although receptive language develops a lot faster. So they understand things that are happening around them, but have a harder time telling you what they need and feel with words. So they do have to use a lot more action, and that comes out in ways that feel hard to us as adults. They get interested in other kids. They do what's called parallel play. So you start to see them playing, like really drawn to other children, but not necessarily like saying hello or wanting to talk to them. They just want to sit next to them and do what they feel like doing, but next to another kid. They do usually still want to please their caregivers. So even though they're saying no, they'll often actually do what you need them to do. They just have to say no about it first. If we can keep that in mind and like let the nose slide sometimes. By the time they turn 3, they really start to develop imagination. So their dolls and their stuffies have personalities. They might even start to get an imaginary friend. And then they can, because they have a lot of fantasy play, you can start to use that kind of fantasy play to help them figure out how to manage their own real feelings. 3-year-olds definitely thrive on routine, and there can be a lot of big feelings related to changes in routine. And that can be true for things that they don't feel like doing, like don't want to get dressed to go to school, but also if there's something that we're all looking forward to, and you would imagine that it would be something good, that can also bring like worsening frequency of meltdowns, like holidays and birthdays. They Instead of just parallel play, their play evolves into associate play. So they like to play with the same things as other kids, but they might not be really interacting with each other. So they all want to play on the play structure, but some want to climb, some want to slide, some want to swing. And then when they turn 4, they start to develop empathy. So understanding that just because we all experience the same thing, we might not feel the same way about it. And so understanding that other people might feel things differently than they do, you start to see them like trying to comfort a friend that cries or kiss somebody's owie if their friend falls down. Whereas a 3-year-old might be more likely to ignore that. They start to have cooperative play. They can take turns. They do back and forth with other kids. And then their imagination kind of progresses into magical thinking. So they start to believe in things that are happening in their mind, like their thoughts have power. They haven't really worked out the full difference between fantasy and reality. And that can manifest in telling stories or even what we would perceive as being lies. But lots of times they're just lying to change reality to the way that they wish that it was. So you saw them sneak a cookie, you asked them about how they snuck the cookie. They deny that they snuck the cookie because they wish that they hadn't done it, and they believe that it really didn't happen that way. Like they rewrite history, and it's not to be manipulative. It's just because they wish that it didn't happen that way. And then like again, kind of zooming back out, one of the reasons developmentally that kids maybe have bigger expressions of feelings is that they have to be there. They are all the time so much more present than the adults around them because they're using their observations to figure out how the world works. Like our brains already know so how many things work, so we can kind of filter a lot of things out and don't need to take in as much information and watch for every little change on a walk around the block. And so our as adults, like we can just go on a walk and be thinking about other things, and kids are really just paying attention to like the bugs and the flowers and the rocks and collecting treasures for putting into your pockets. So now, like what probably all of you came here for was like, what can we do about this? I just want to again say that like a through line through all of these strategies is having and building empathy for both your child and for yourself. You want to be able to put yourself in their shoes, and it can help you find the patience that you need for them. And also like the more patience that we can have for ourselves, their feelings feel hard because it is hard. It's hard for them and it's hard for us. And it's okay to feel tired by that. Like it's okay to feel drained by that. If we maybe can reframe the difficult feelings our kids express as a storm that we're navigating them through and not a fire that needs extinguishing, it's like easier for me to access the patience in myself to tolerate the storm. So I say something to myself like, it's not my job to put out the fire. It helps to keep from doing the unhelpful firefighting strategies that we might be both used to doing that were done to us as kids. but accidentally add fuel to the fire and prolong a meltdown rather than making it like kind of bringing it to an end. Okay, before the meltdown. Strategy number one is to do some special time. Why does this help? Special time provides connection. Toddlers and preschoolers have their emotional cups filled when they feel connected to their caregivers. And a full cup has more room for give when there's emotional requirements in other times of the day. A lot of our adult lives are filled with distraction and multitasking, so labeling the time as special, no phone time, really flags it for our kids that we're prioritizing them. And I hear a lot of families say, like, I'm all like a common scenario when you would need to start using special time. Sorry, something dinged. Maybe it's outside in the office. A common time when we need to start using special time would be like if we have a toddler and there's a new baby that comes in, and then the big kid becomes a lot needier. And I hear a lot of families come in for appointments saying, like, I already am giving them so much attention. Like, I'm spending 2 hours a day just playing cards with them, and they just keep needing more from me. And so it doesn't mean dedicate, like, special time doesn't mean dedicating that much more time. It's probably just doing what you're already doing, but changing how you label it. So what does it look like? You choose something achievable, 10 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week, and then choose Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. This is when we're going to do it. You write it on a calendar where your kid can see it. And then even more to like continue to flag it as just being very protected time. You put up a sign on the door to their bedroom, on the door to your bedroom, someplace where you can close it so that you're just you and them together. Maybe it's only your own kid, maybe it's only the dog that sees the sign, but the sign is important to put up. So like my silly little example would say something like, attention, this is Daddy and Pearl time, do not disturb. And after you make it, you can have your kid help you decorate it. Something that shows them, like, once we put up this sign, this time is protected. You need to set a kitchen timer, or like a toddler clock, something without a phone, even if you're only using it for a timer. Because we already said this was special, no phone time. You want to put it up for 10 minutes where your kid can see it. And until you've done it a bunch of times, you want to remind them at the beginning of special time, like, again, you're flagging it for them. You're really important to me. So I want to make sure the next 10 minutes are just for us. I'm going to put my phone away so it doesn't interrupt us. What do you want to do together? Are we going to draw? Are we going to drive cars? Are we going to play pretend? And then it should be child driven and whatever they feel like doing, even if it's like 10 soul crushing minutes of playing parking garage with them for 6 months at a time. That's what you got to do. And then when the timer rings, you want to also flag the end. So you thank your kiddo. You say, I'm so glad we got to spend this time together. You're a really special child to me. And if they protest the end of the time, you want to validate that. So you say, ugh, you are disappointed that time is up. You wanted to keep on playing. I get disappointed about things too, but I'm so glad we get to play again on Wednesday. And then you bring our calendar in, like, see it here on the calendar, and we mark it there. Maybe we go out and get a snack. And then, so that's how you work special time. And then next strategy would be offering control when you can. Why does this help? Kids spend a lot of their lives with other people dictating the things that they're going to do, the things that they're going to wear, all kinds of things. So having even a few minutes of self-efficacy and agency really makes them more open to receiving direction the next time you need something from them. I think of this as like the what can I let go of strategy. So you want to give in when you can, like, choose your battles, let them choose their own clothes, wear their shoes on the wrong foot, go outside with an inappropriately for the weather coat, whatever. Eat only grapes for dinner once in a while, even if like you went to a lot of work to prepare a nutritious and like well-balanced meal, and it's your value that we eat like all together and all eat the same stuff. Like, once in a while, if they say they're only going to eat grapes, then you just say, oh, well, the rest of us are eating this, but it looks like your body only wants grapes today. So as long as you're getting full and you're fueling your body, I guess I'll be okay with it. Okay, so let go when you can. And then if you need a strategy or like a game that is more bang for your buck again, you can play something like the Kids in Charge game. And the way this one works is you set it up as saying something like, oh, I noticed it's like, I was thinking it's really hard sometimes to be a kid because there's always people telling you to get dressed and when to go potty and what to eat and when to eat. And I remember when I was a kid feeling like that was real annoying. So I was thinking we could play the Kids in Charge game. What that looks like is for the next 10 minutes, you do get to be the boss. I'm not going to do anything gross or unsafe. I'm not going to eat anything weird, but otherwise, whatever you tell me to do, I got to do it. And then you want to offer some ideas, kind of playful, like, oh, sheesh, so warm in here. I sure hope you don't tell me to wear a sweater for the whole 10 minutes. I sure hope you don't tell me to hop on one foot. That sounds really hard. And again, we're like filling up their cup of the need to have some control. And then this is a game where maybe a surprising to me side effect is that you end up also building up in yourself some empathy for your kid. So even though you know that it's a game and you know that you're doing it for this particular purpose internally, like you're going to get sweaty, you're going to get tired of hopping, you're going to be internally irritable and like and that is going to help you like in the future find more compassion when your kid feels irritable about the things they don't want to wear. Okay, you did all the things, but still there's a meltdown that happens. And again, also remembering we're not here to put out the fire. We're not here to put out the fire. We're not firefighters. We're guides. We're getting through the storm, but we're not putting it out. One of the first things that you can do when they're having moments of dysregulation would be to name the feeling. This helps because even when they can't say the words, they understand what you're saying. And you get bonus points if you can add a description or an explanation. Again, receptive language happens so much earlier than expressive, and parenting is a long game. So even though it feels like maybe a little bit tiresome to keep naming feelings, in a few years when they have more language, when they're 5 or 6 and something annoys them, they'll shout at you like, I'm so mad. And then they don't have to show it to you when they can say it. So what does that look like? Looks like saying stuff like, you're really sad. You're so disappointed. You really wanted to keep going down the slide. You're really mad. It makes you so angry when your blocks fall over. Or sometimes they don't know why they're mad. You don't know why they're upset. And so instead of naming a feeling, you just say something doesn't feel good. You know what? I can see something about this doesn't feel good to you. After you name it, the next strategy is to validate the feeling. Why does this help? Feelings are internal and invisible, so external behaviors are meant to show you how bad they feel. It's different than falling and getting a skinned knee. You can see the missing skin, you can see the blood coming out. Obviously that hurts, but sometimes when you have feelings, you can't tell obviously that they hurt. So they got to do other things to show you like this feels bad in here. When kids feel understood and validated, they don't have to show you with their actions, but when they feel invalidated, they often feel the need to double down in order to be taken seriously. That's true for adults as well. So I think it's probably a relatable thing. What does that look like? I understand when you feel mad that your brother knocked over your blocks, that would really make anyone mad. It's really sad that you lose a special toy. I feel like that when I lose stuff. And then sometimes you don't know, so you say something about this doesn't feel right to you. I believe you. Okay. Channel your creativity. This one is tricky for me. I don't feel like a creative person, but it like kids are very creative, and so like adding that into their feelings definitely helps. Seeing things on paper makes it feel more real to them, and even though they can't read, they like to see written word. They can see that words are important to the adults around them or their big siblings, and they like to see things that are special just for them. Pictures and graphics can also help visualize schedules and ease feelings and behaviors around transitions. That particular thing like wasn't really for during a meltdown, but it fit with creativity, so that's why I stuck it in here. Okay, what does that look like? You can draw for them. I feel really good about this slide. There was a time when I was like, there was a time when my littlest was like around 2 and just cried all the time about all like things that made no sense to any of us. So we spent a lot of time in the rocking chair and just crying together. And one day, I grabbed that little doodle board where you like can draw on it, but then push the button and everything disappears. And I started drawing. I was like, oh man, you are really sad. Look, this is your sad mouth. And this is your eyes and your hair. And look at those big tears. There's so many tears. They're taking over the whole page. Oh my gosh, you are crying and crying. It's so loud, but look, here's mama. See how mama loves you? Mama's filling you with so much love, even though you're sad. And like, even in the middle of screaming at me, he kind of stopped and was like, draw it again. And then he kept crying. And so I drew it over and over again. And then at some point, like we did this a lot. And like at some point I would know that it was over because he would tell me to draw the dog, which was his Steffi at the time. He would say, draw Cedar, and then I would draw the dog, and then we would all feel better and get up and go about our day. But it was like you could during the process of him telling me like over and over again, draw it again, draw it again, draw it again. It just felt like a little bit more came out, and then you could feel in both of our bodies that it was over. All right. So another thing, if you're not into your own art, you can have them draw. You might say something like, quick, here's a pen, show me on the paper how mad you are, or show me on the easel. And then your work is really just to describe it at the end of it, like encourage them to keep on going and then describe it. At the end of this, you might say something like, oh man, I see a lot of big orange anger, and then there's some like black streaks on there. That almost looks like claw marks. Huh, that was a really big feeling you had inside of you. And then, you know, for extra points, you get to label it. So you write their name on it, you put the feeling. Maybe you tear that, if it's on a pad of paper, you maybe tear it off and then hang it up on the wall so that you can see it at a time when you feel differently and know that like anger happens, and then these calmer feelings that I have right now happen. You might even notice it. You might say something like, oh man, remember earlier today when you were so mad? Look how big your anger was. Now you feel better. Feelings are like that. And then just keep going through your day. Like, we don't have to make it a huge deal. And then the last one again is just something like a visual schedule. It helps with pinch points in the day, whether that's like getting out the door in the morning, going to bed at night. You just write the story of things that you're going to be doing for that time period, and then you kind of point to it while you're going through it. Or if they try to like I don't know, go back, you've got a fresh diaper on and they're trying to go back to playing, you'd be like, oh gosh, we did teeth and we did diapers, so it's not time for toys right now, it's time for story, and then we have to do a song. We really got to keep on that schedule. And then the last one, of course, is like, what can we do after the meltdown or after periods of dysregulation? Imagination and play really help kids process whatever it is that they've been going through. So and toddlers and preschoolers spend a lot of time in imagination land, and they feel connected to us when we can join them there. And it's also often easier to process feelings or like understand a lesson if they don't feel like they're the subject of a lecture. Imagination and play kind of take the edge off feeling too seen, and so they can hear what we're trying to tell them if it's about something else and not them. What does that look like? It'd be something like your kid gets sent home with a note from the preschool. It's a pretty common one. She bit someone else during circle time. She's been like, you see it in your own house. She's snatching toys away from her baby brother. Instead of just telling her like, you can't bite your friend when you get mad. Teeth are not for biting, or like, I don't know, friends are not for biting. Instead of saying that kind of thing, you maybe play it out with two dolls that are having a tea party, and one takes the cookies and the other one bites her. It usually works best if you can be the child, so you can be the biter, and the doll you're playing with bites your kiddo's doll, so that you can work out kind of what you can ask for them to have a little bit of empathy by being the doll that gets bitten. If your child isn't into dolls but likes trucks or stuffies, you can have a matchbox truck bite or crash into another one. Another common pretend scenario might involve two trucks learning to share. This kind of thing works really well with pretend. Obviously, we've just kind of skimmed the surface on preschooler emotional regulation in a 20-minute webinar. So I've included some resources if you're looking for a deeper dive. The top two books for parents are How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen and Good Inside with Dr. Becky. Both of them have really great strategies for a variety of different scenarios that really help with understanding our kids and how to help them with emotional regulation. And many of this, like most of the strategies that I used in this talk, came from these books. A little bit more academic is The Emotional Life of a Toddler, but it has some vignettes that I think help us understand our kids, and also just really describes like how it is that a child at 2, at 3, at 4 could again experience the same moment that we are experiencing, but perceive it very, very differently, and like why the behaviors that they have would definitely make sense with their own experience. Picture books, I love picture books. So all of these were well loved in our house because they're about things that feel hard. So The Rabbit Listened, When Sadness is at Your Door, and Today I'm a Monster. Put them all on your library list immediately. If you're not here to read a whole parenting book, like that's not just in your capacity right now, the podcasts, Raising Good Humans with Dr. Eliza, Good Inside with Dr. Becky, both have great strategies. And I think the Big Little Feelings is a parenting community. All of those groups have, I think, an Instagram following or like Instagram handle. I only included Big Little Feelings, but I'm pretty sure the other two do as well. If you tried everything, you listened to the podcast, you read the books, and you're still feeling like we need more help, then you, of course, want to schedule a behavioral visit with your primary doc at Allegro. We will take a history to help evaluate for or rule out any medical conditions that might be contributing to behaviors. And then most likely you'll end up, depending on your situation, with referrals to parent or family support groups or parent coaching programs. And then I didn't say, but you can read that you can often check and see if this kind of, like, depending on the last time you talked to your doctor, your initial appointment can often be virtual. So you can always ask about that. All right. And that's, I think we're at questions if we've got some.
We've had a few come in, and I know we are right at the end of our presentation, but I'm going to read one of them off here. Question from a 2-parent household. I've noticed when we do remember to do special time, it's usually one-on-one. So either toddler and mom or toddler and dad. Should we be focusing special time as a 1-on-2, or is it more valuable if it's 1-on-1, alternating mom and then dad?
Yeah. I think that because the function of special time is really to build connection, is for them to feel connected to their adult, then part of one of the important components is that they don't have to share. So you got to do like you've already been doing, you got to do it when they're taking when the baby or the other kid is either at school or taking a nap, or at a time when you can really devote those 10 minutes just to the one child. And who does it doesn't, like, who the adult is less important than just that the kid is getting some time by themselves.